What up everybody, welcome back to RoyalBluFX. In today's video we're going to discuss and talk about when supply and demand zones become invalidated. What do you do next? Alright, all in this video, so stay tuned. Alright, so what do I mean by invalidation or invalidating? Well, in simplest terms, I mean when price breaks a supply or demand zone, right? It breaks a supply and demand zone and then continues in that intended direction, okay? So one instance, like this diagram here, this bullish diagram, when price is going bullish like this, right? As traders, we anticipate for price to come back and rest under an area of demand like this, right? Where price is resting right at the demand area and pushing price bullish, right? But at times, and in most cases, price doesn't do that, right? Price just breaks right through this demand area like so, right? And then continues price bullish like this, right? Now, this is neither wrong or correct, okay? And this is what I'm talking about. In an instance when price breaks a demand area, what price is actually doing here is liquidating or taking out a low, right? Taking out that liquidity's low here, and then wants to continue price bullish, okay? Now, this is both correct and incorrect in terms of structure. Let me talk to you and tell you about what I'm talking about here, okay? So technically, when price breaks out a low like this, we can still trade this low here, right? We can still trade it by buying towards the intended direction. You can see the direction is bullish so far, right? We've been making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and then another higher low coming in, right? Until then price breaks this low, now we have to adapt by structure, right? As I mentioned in other previous structure videos, we need to be always adapting to structure, right? Well, in this case, it's both bullish and bearish. So what do I mean by that? When price breaks this low here, like this, liquidating this low here, we know that price, anytime price takes liquidity, price needs to move in that intended direction again. In this case, that direction is bullish, right? Like this, right? And once price does this, okay, once price does this, we then look for the internal structure in here, okay? We look for that internal structure in here, and then we look for our famous chalk right in here, right? To look for buys to continue price to go bullish and look to target the high here, right? But in this case, we might not be able to target this current high. What we should do and speculate here is to target the current supply level, only because the invalidation is this low here, which means that we're also looking for a sell position here, right? We're looking for the market to go sell on a bearish side of us. Going to break another structure like this, another low, and if it does, we can of course come and anticipate for another potential sell at this high here as well, right? But the real trick behind invalidation and invalidating supply and demand zones is to understand when price breaks a current low, in this case, right, the demand zone, and it's just to understand whenever we're playing structure, okay, the structure is key above all, and understanding that we're still bullish, right? The main structure, the main direction is still bullish, but we have a small break of structure, which still gives us that significant look in the market that price should continue bullish, based off of the liquidity that the market has taken below, swept the liquidity from the low to push the market high. Normally when price breaks structure twice, whether it's bullish or bearish, that tells us that price wants to go in that intended direction, all right? So at RoyalBluFX, we always practice that theory in our course, right? And it generally works out for us, right? It could be different for somebody else, for their sort of theory, the way price and structure works for them. But in our case, in our theory, when price breaks structure twice, that we look for that price to go in that intended direction. So, but generally speaking, in this diagram here, as you see, price is bullish. We are seeing that the market is bullish entirely, right? Price can go bullish this way, since we see that price has been bullish ever since from this low, right? As you can see, also price is showing us that there's order flow pushing bullish. That also gives us, the idea that price wants to continue upwards in a bullish market, right? So that's that for that one. Now for bearish side of things, all right, you can see when prices are going bearish, all right, what happens here? when there's a high and a low, high and a low, high and a low, you can see that price invalidates the supply zone. All right, that doesn't entirely mean that price is going to be pushing bullish, you know, on a major structure side of things, right? But although it just invalidates it, right, which also means we're having selling and buying pressure in this area here, in this consolidation period almost, right? It's not a full consolidation period because when price breaks this high, right, we can anticipate that price can look, we can potentially look for buys here to push price high, right? When price does retrace at this low, we can look for buys at this area. Let me move myself here. Like that. Okay, we can look for buys here at this demand level. And the smart thing about this interesting theory, when price does come out of demand, we can look to buy and target either the high or the supply here, right, at the supply level, or target that that current high right there. Okay, because at this area we are unaware and we don't know if price should break a new high, right? Given the fact that price just broke once, you know, price broke the structure once, this doesn't mean that demand's going to push price even higher, right? We need those two breaks of structures to give us that significant theory and that idea that price should push bullish from here, right? So if price does break bullish like this, of course now we can anticipate for prices to retrace back to a deep, give us a deep retracement or what have you, and then look for that buy to continue bullish, right? So obviously we have two what you would call it here, the two invalidations right there. You can see that price did ever so slightly break just below here, right, which also tells us now price is potentially bearish, right? And you can see price going bullish again this way, breaking a new high. Therefore we have a range that's sweeping a low and a high at the same time, which we all need to be weary of, because when price is doing this, now price is expanding and moving price. It's starting a consolidation period, right? What we can also see a consolidation period. Then now you can see prices going bearish like this, all right? Taking more liquidity from this highs, and then creating more order flow, pushing bearish. Now we can look to continue selling because the whole entire direction of this market is bearish. Therefore, we can play the internal structure now and look to continue selling the market, at least to this low, right? And then obviously when you get a complete break of structure, now it just tells you, you can see the whole diagram where price has been, what price broke bearish, retraced, mitigated, right? Price breaking bearish again, like this. Now we can anticipate for price to retrace, either give us a full deep retracement and or come in respect to this area of supply where there's a flip, and then continue price bearish this way, right? So it really all depends on how you see the market, right? At RoyalBluFX we have that theory where obviously in this video, as we're teaching you guys this little nugget that we're giving you guys out, that you know, when that invalidation does happen, there's both buying and selling pressure happening. You just need to go in your lower time frames after that invalidation does happen to go and look on those lower time frames to look to sell in that direction. Okay, so just remember that obviously structure is always king. When structure breaks, you are looking for that market to go in that intended direction, whether it's going to TP and hit at supply or demand levels and or supply or demand zones. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys on a real life chart example right now, and so you guys can see how you guys can take advantage of actually trading this scenario. Okay, so stick with me and I'll be right there in a second. All right, so here we are on a live chart example. Let's start looking for those invalidation points in the market. Okay, so as you can see over here, I'm already spotting something over here at this high. Let's take this out so I can show you guys clearly what I'm talking about. Right here you can see that there's a bullish example happening on the 4 hour. We're on the 4 hour chart. We use the 4 hour as our main directional time frame. All right, and then you can clearly see that structure has broken the high here. Okay, right over there, and then we have this as our extreme low here, this demand zone. All right, up there, and you can clearly see the behavior, what's happening here with our previous diagram. it simulates the same example right over here, okay? We had a break of structure, or a chalk in this case as well, because this is a chalk also gives us that idea that price is reversing, okay? And you can see here we have a break of structure, price is pushing bullish, comes down, takes out this low here, then forms a chalk, right? Now we also understand that price is taking out this low based off of liquidity. It's price grabbing liquidity here. It's invalidating this low, which also gives us a good reason that this right here, this area of supply, should continue bearish, or at least somewhat bearish, and looking to target at least an area of demand here, right? Because we don't know if this high here can continue bullish, right? This also begins in a typically it begins on a range, right, when prices are reversing. So that's one factor I missed to mention out on the diagrams of there is typically when prices are reversing, it's used in a reversal aspect, okay? So as we zoom out here, you can see here that price did mitigate this area of supply right above here, all right, and right there. Okay, it's mitigating the supply zone here, and right now this is when prices start to exchange, right, from bullish to bearish. Price is manipulating everybody in here, but I really want you guys to see this clearly, right? If you were just to trade the 4 hour and you were looking bullish here, you're looking to trade the swing here, and you're seeing that order flow is pushing bullish, right? There's a high, low, high, low, high, low. We're just following order flow and we're following structure very simply and easily here. Our anticipation as a trader obviously is to wait for prices to mitigate the supply and continue bearish, right? To give us that bearish sign, to give us that bearish sign that prices want to continue bearish here. Okay, so let's look even deeper in here, right? So when price broke this low here, you can see price just took out the lows liquidity and is pushing bullish. Now let's drop down to a time frame to 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 15 minutes here, and see how we would have probably been able to look for entries here. Okay, you can see that from this extreme high and this extreme low here, when price is going bearish, you can see that our substructure was broken. You can see that the microstructure is continuing bullish here. It's just lingering around our demand zone, which isn't typically an area where it's not a full sell. Obviously, a lot of traders may want to avoid this based off of this break of structure, and now think that this area of supply here is an area where we're looking for sells, right? It's a typical way to look for for a trader to look for an area for a continuation of sell down here. Now what's important here is when we zoom out, notice we deemed this as our last demand level. Therefore, if price hasn't fully broken this low here, it just sort of took out liquidity, right, by a hair. There's that intention for us as a trader that price is still bullish, right? So we need to be still looking for buys here, not sells, because price didn't really break structure at its full potential here to look for price to come back here and continue the order flow that has begun here. You can see that there's a low, right? There's that high, there's that low there, and then that high, right? So if price did break significantly to the downside, we can expect for this high to come be in respected like this to push bearish, okay? And if that doesn't happen, and since that hasn't happened, right, we can already translate this break of structure as a liquidity break, all right? Price just kind of sneaks up right below and then starts pushing back bullish, all right? This is that invalidation or invalid zone, invalid break of structure that we're talking about in this specific example, okay? So in terms of the entry, right, we always use our rule in terms of chalk. We always look for chalks. And sometimes, in rare cases, when a chalk doesn't happen, we adapt to other type of entries, which we can't talk about here because it would have been unfair for our members in our course. But in this example, you can see that there's a high and there's a low here. But if we look even deeper, you can see that there's another area right there where there's a break of structure. There's a high right there. There's a high, low, Let me map that out for you guys so you guys can see that clearly right there. Okay, so that would have been a break of structure, right? We would look at our area of demand. Who broke that structure? It was this low here. You can see prices ever so slightly just working and consolidating here on this demand zone, excuse me, right there. If I can get my demand zone correctly on here, right there. Okay, it has respected and price has pushed up, right? You don't always have to be first in on this entry, obviously. You can always wait for another break of structure, another sign that price is pushing bullish. Right there. Let's kind of map that out correctly. Okay, right there. And you can see here, we see what broke structure. It was this high, this low that broke this high, right? And sometimes you're able to catch price at this second break of structure. Sometimes you can't, right? But this is why we always like entering prices at an area of a chalk. Okay. You can also see since this high wasn't taken out, since this high was taken out by this move, you can always look for earlier entries too. Right here, you can see that the internal structure is breaking, so we can also deem this as an area of entry right there. So that's also a chalk as well. You can see that the high was broken, that internal high. You can see that the external low was broken there. Let's give that a go here, right there, and right there. Okay. So this is also a very valid point of entry as well. We're obviously not going to talk about entries on this too much. We're not going to talk too much about entries on this video, but right there you go. You can see where price is going off from there, right? And for this area, right, since we had an area of liquidity where price is breaking below, it would be safe to say that we would only target an area of supply, because there's no knowing if prices continue bullish or bearish. And you can see that there's the last low here that has broken the high. You can map that out right there. Let me make this actually clearer. Yeah. Okay. There we go. That low and that high right there. You can also call this that last low because there's a low, there's a high there. Okay. But this is internal. This is internal structure. Sometimes internal structure doesn't work quite well, so we would mark out the whole low and high on a smaller time frame, right, to have this area of supply be tapped like this. Then you would look for the exchange in here as well. You look for that chalk to look for a price to go bearish here. Let's look for that here. You can see that there was a high broken right there. I call that the high. Then we see that the low was also broken from here. Okay, this is specifically the chalk entry criteria, right? We'd wait for price to get back at this high, and then we look for that sell-off immediately from this point. Because now we know that on the higher time frame, we know we've broken structure, which is a liquidity break of structure, right? Which is still deemed to be a break of structure. And then in this case, you can either target the demand area because we're still not confirmed if price is bullish or bearish at this case, right? So there we go, right? There you have it. You could come and TP this area of demand. Let me just map that out for you guys right there. Oops, I gotta move myself here. Okay, just like this. All right, and there you go. That would have been an area to target, right? And again, the reason why I'm targeting this demand area is because we're not confirmed if price is really going bearish, because we had only one break of structure that's confirming that price should potentially go bearish here, right? But we don't have a clue if price is really going to be going further past this low right over here, something like this, right? And if it gave us that second break of structure, then of course we can deem and validate this as a potential sell-off, that this is actually a complete bearish, bearish structure going to the downside, right? So that's that, right? So guys, I hope you guys are learning in terms of understanding what I'm talking about here. in terms of what validation, what invalidation or invalidating structure looks like in the market. You can use this to your advantage just by understanding simply a liquidity breakup structure and a actual breakup structure, which we'll also talk about in another video in the next week from now. Okay, so I hope you guys love this video. Please throw a huge thumbs up if you like this video. Put some comments down below. Let me know what you guys really think about this video, because I'm really curious, and obviously subscribe to this channel, because we always give out free content. Until then, guys, I will see you next.